watching Public Comment every Thursdays at 8 a.m. the live stream. Detroit is different in BridgeDetroit, local politics of Detroit. Welcome back to Public Comment. I am Khary Frazier of Detroit is Different, and weekly, every Thursday morning at 8 a.m. you can come and get some information about what was happening in our city council chambers, always anchored through a notebook from Malachi Barrett. Malachi, how are you today?
I'm all right. Do I look okay? I feel like really tired, actually.
You look great.
Say that. Okay, thank you.
All right.
I'm doing good.
All right. And also with Malachi from a policy angle. And, we definitely need to consider policy when we talk anything council. Thomaesa Bailey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Happy to be back in the studio. I see you and I are twinning this morning, so that's funny too.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm just glad to be here.
Exactly.
Gotta get one of those shirts.
Exactly. We need to get you in the Protect Your Crown, James Tate, an effort that definitely was put together. And today, though, we're talking some stuff in council and some things at other places as well. But we really are jumping right on into speaking about a budget surplus. This is not the first budget surplus, but Mayor Duggan proposes a $42 million reserve fund. This will really be allocated to deal with what those hits and impacts of the big, beautiful bill would be. And the revenue that we already kind of see of 16 million that will be a tax cut loss, but how to better prepare for this. Malachi, you were already talking a little bit about budget earlier this week. You had like an interview and kind of some of like the financial standing of the city.
Mm-hmm.
Where does this report kind of connect into that story?
Yeah, so every year that I've been reporting on stuff in the city and going back 11 consecutive years now, the city's had a surplus at the end of the fiscal year, which ends June 30. So July marks, the next fiscal year. And typically that's because there are vacancies that, happen in departments and the department heads decide not to hire that person. So there's a cost savings there. There's other ways that they save money, but that's one of the more common reasons that are cited. And it's usually in the ballpark of a couple tens of millions of dollars in the past. So basically, when that happens, the mayor makes a recommendation to city council about how that surplus money should be spent. Usually it gets kind of divvied up between a couple of different things. I can take a look at what we've done in the past if we want to talk about that in comparison. But this year, we have $60 million in surplus, and the mayor wants to use most of that to create a fund, a corporate income tax reserve fund, he's calling it. And this is basically because as part of the big, beautiful bill, there's a change in the way corporate income taxes are going to be tallied. There's going to be basically a discount on that. And so the city expects that it could see less revenue coming down from the federal government as, part of its corporate income tax share. And the other aspect of that is the tariff impact on the manufacturing industry and how that's affecting taxes and the city collects from that sector of the economy. And Mayor Duggan saying that, it's still unclear what the impact of that will be, long term. But as of right now, profits are down and we expect that to continue given the current climate. So they're putting that money away to replace the revenue. And the city council has yet to approve that. The mayor recommended it this week. Councilmember Durhal, who leads the budget committee, was there in the room and said he supported it. So we'll see if it, encounters any kind of opposition. Maybe they shave off some money toward a particular council priority that, didn't get funded in the budget this year. But that's essentially the gist. We have quite a big reserve fund. There's like $150 million set aside for a financial emergency. We've been making pension payments now. And so, people in the mayor's administration feel like we're on pretty good financial footing. We're meeting our obligations, but there's always these risks that are out there and things that the city can't control. So we're just trying to give ourselves a safety cushion, basically.
All right. You talk about this safety cushion and how everything goes kind of in budget and what that will be shared. So much of this pension coming back is one of those issues, but you've been assured that more so the city's in a decent financial standing. now I guess the question I have for you, Thomaesa, as like this transition when we're thinking of like one executive body to the next executive body, and how that would look as far as like even keeping up the budgets and the pace of like surpluses. Do you think even though a lot of council will kind of remain the same, some of this will possibly change with issues like a surplus as we look at like a new executive, and how would that change?
Yeah, I mean, it could definitely change. I think the new mayor and the new city council will always be committed to making sure that the city is in a good fiscal and financial standing. So whether or not we decide to, use some of the surplus for something else or reallocate funds in a different place, I think we'll always have a chief executive that's going to be mindful of where the money is going and how it's being spent. Just because we know the history of what has happened here in Detroit as far as it relates to the fiscal health of the city. So I think that will always be a consideration. I'm wondering also, what the September revenue estimating conference will say, because every February and September, the city does a revenue estimating conference and they look at where the revenues will be coming from, how much money we'll have coming in. And so I feel like every year when they do those, we also look and see where are the shortfalls, what revenue is not coming in as much as we thought it was going to come in, where do we need to shift some things. But I think maintaining a surplus is always going to be important because there is just so much uncertainty, especially now as we look at the federal government and money that's going to be coming down and the tariffs and all of those things. I think that's going to be super important as well. And so I think that it could change a little bit, but I think the mindset of fiscal responsibility is going to stay because no one wants to see us have any more difficulty.
All right, this revenue conference, what is it? Can you explain what that is and how that connects to people and how do people find out about it?
Yes, I'm so sorry. So the city of Detroit as a municipality receives revenue from all different types of tax revenue, taxes that we pay. And so that's how we were talking earlier about the corporate income tax, individual income tax. There's a wagering tax. So all three of the casinos are taxed. And so we get tax revenue from that. We get tax revenue from certain other places. And there's proposal to also have an entertainment tax, but that will generate some revenue to come into the city. So at the revenue estimating conference, we look at those numbers. We look at what money came in from where, how much money we actually have, what our expenses are, what our liabilities are going to be. And as I mentioned, they're twice a year, once in February, once in September. It's September now, so one should be coming up. And so you can go online, you can Google Revenue Estimating Conference City of Detroit, and they have all of the documents, the spreadsheets, that show you like where the revenue came from, how much money we actually have, where we are fiscally. And so we keep track of that every single year. So that's what the revenue estimating conferences are.
All right, thank you, thank you. And then on to the next topic. We're still talking money, but we're talking money in reference to the land bank. The land bank is on the hearts and minds of so many people, definitely council. It's been brought up. So Detroit is braced for Trump's troops. That is not the slide. That's not supposed to
old
be
news.
there. Old news. So what's at stake with the Detroit Land Bank? Accountability, transparency, and future oversight. So the Detroit Land Bank managing 58,443 vacant parcels, but it's looked at for a forensic audit that was called by Mary Waters. This is something that definitely got a unanimous vote as well, because people are really, a lot of the talk about what's happened with the land bank really is not just even necessarily right now. It's for some of the practices that have happened with the land bank since its inception from the beginning. But right now, looking at that forensic audit, what's happening with the properties, how is it being managed? That's key and heavy. Malachi, you were there. What was the discussion like? What did it feel like in council?
Yeah, so the land bank, I mean, we've probably talked about this a couple times on the show by now, but the land bank and the city are operating without a agreement, without really a contract. Their last one expired at the end of 2023. And as the council has been deciding, what should go into the new agreement, new memorandum of understanding, there's been an opportunity to maybe tweak some things and add some suggestions to the way land bank runs programs. And Councilmember Waters has been, probably the loudest voice on that in her criticism of how certain programs like the nuisance abatement program and the occupied buyback program have hurt residents, and the things that she's hearing on a daily basis. It sounds like she talks about, just trying to go to the grocery store. People want to talk to her about how the land bank did them dirty. And, there are just a lot of like frustrations that people have that we've talked about before on this show. So she's made a number of recommendations for changes to the land bank agreement. And she's also trying to find ways to create more transparency and accountability. And one of them would be asking the Michigan Auditor General to do a forensic audit of the land bank, which I think would be aimed at trying to find out if they are, fulfilling their legal obligations and doing what they're supposed to do under state law, which created the land bank, and then also look into any kind of like potential fraud and abuse. It's not clear like what the full scope of a forensic audit would be. I think that's kind of up to the Auditor General, and it's also up to them whether they'll pick this up. The council passed a resolution that said, please do this. And resolutions are non-binding. They're just pieces of paper, with the council signatures on it for sure. So it's not, it's not like a piece of paper on the side of the road or anything like that, but it's also doesn't have any real like legal power to compel the Auditor General to do anything about it. So we'll see if this gets picked up. The city's Auditor General said that she would be interested in doing an audit as well, or teaming up with the state in some capacity, but also mentioned that the council was, in Mary Waters, I guess in particular, was hesitant to have the city do this because they don't know what the cost would be, and the state theoretically has more resources to put into something like this and would create a better audit, basically a more comprehensive audit. So yeah, I think this is just one of like many things that she's trying to do to improve the process of the land bank. Nobody from the land bank was asked to come in and speak on this. And there's, I've been waiting for a more kind of robust conversation in committee about this. It's kind of been, pushed down the road a little bit, but I know Pro Tem Tate wants to try to get an agreement hashed out by the end of the year. And normally these are 3-year agreements. He suggested having it only be a 1-year agreement because next year, we're going to have a new mayor. We're going to have a new city council, or, a council that'll look pretty different with at least a few more new faces on it. And so the intent there is to give them say, to not have them kind of stuck under this agreement, which maybe the current council feels that way. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Yeah. So when we think of this land bank and the agreement and what people are looking at, it's frustrations that a lot of residents have about getting access to properties that seem to be like, especially lots that people can't buy or get access to for whatever reason. And also like what happens when you don't, quote unquote, stick to the deals connected to the land bank. It was a lot of talk about dissolving the land bank altogether. Some people uplifted that. Thomaesa, you've definitely touched in and heard some conversations about this land bank thing. What's happening in reference to policy moving without that contract? And what relationship do you think could be established moving forward for the benefit of not just council, but also residents?
Yeah, I think this is something that we definitely need to hash out. This is a conversation that's been going on forever. Right now, as you mentioned, the land bank is operating without an MOU between the city and the land bank, which means that they don't necessarily have an official agreement that's in force right now because it has expired. And so I think we need to figure that out. I think the 1 year is a good idea because the new council is definitely and the new mayor are definitely going to have some things to say about the land bank because the people are talking about the land bank. It's one of the things, like when I was chief in Member Calloway's office, people would call us about the land bank all the time, particularly the nuisance abatement program. So the nuisance abatement program, people see that as just a ploy for the land bank to take your house. They say that your house is a nuisance. They put a sign up, and they can actually take your property if you are not doing what you need to do to maintain that property. And so on the land bank side, they say, well, we're doing this for the good of the community because this house is blight. It's a nuisance, right? And so we're letting people know that if you don't abate this nuisance, we will take your home. But people on the other side are saying, well, I don't have enough time. They're asking me to do these things that are kind of like impossible to do. I don't have a lot of money, all of these things. And so there's a really big conflict as it relates to the nuisance abatement program. And then another issue that we hear is that the land bank does not allow opportunities for everyday Detroiters to get land, to get homes, to be able to rehab them. The land bank will do a lot of business with people like the people from Bargain Block. They'll do a lot of business with other corporate entities and things of that nature, and people who have money. But when it comes to like a regular everyday Detroiter wanting to be able to do that, it's much more difficult for them. And of course, on the land bank side, they'll say, well, if you want to build up a land bank house, you have to come to us with a plan. You have to come to us with money. You have to come to us showing us that you're able to do that. Right. And so that's why these, corporate entities get a lot of assistance. But if we're thinking about self-determination and having Detroiters be able to rebuild their own neighborhoods, that kind of model is not going to be helpful. And so those are the kind of like the main conflicts that I've heard with the land bank. And so I do think something needs to be hashed out soon because Detroiters are really upset.
With the nuisance abatement program, so that's not even for like land bank owned houses, right? Like they can go to somebody that has like they didn't buy a house from the land bank and like didn't keep up on compliance.
Mm-hmm. If it's a nuisance, if it looks blighted, even if you live there, but it appears that it's blighted or something is wrong with it, or if you're an absentee owner, they can say that it's a nuisance, and of course that's a legal determination, right? So you have to go to court for that.
It's that's definitely a big frustration that Mayor Waters talked about the other day. The city, does that through the law department already. It's interesting, I guess, that we have like this public-private entity that's also like suing citizens, suing residents to get control of their property. So yeah, I'm going to pull up the report. I'm curious. I want to find out how many homes have been taken that way if I can find it really quick. So bear with.
All right, definitely, because that is definitely on the hearts and minds of people. I think in my neighborhood, you see those big yellow stickers and it's like, okay, what's going on? And you have like days for compliance. Also within those compliance, I know that land bank properties also have a particular timetable of executing the plan, and who and how that is enforced and where that's enforced is all where sometimes residents feel as though corporate interests have seen more favor than residents have seen. It's definitely been some people I know that said, okay, I just really wanted this lot of land so I could do a community garden. When can I get access to it? And then they get that lot of land, and what they're doing with their garden is not necessarily meeting the plan that was executed. It's a lot just in development that's happening with cost that can shift and change. I don't know if you all have ever taken on any type of development project. It should be like, redoing a kitchen or a bathroom or something. You start here thinking that, okay, I'll be done by this. And sometimes the done by can be an extended timeline depending upon what's happening with cost, time, having access to the proper developers and labor to execute that. So Malachi, you got some numbers?
Yeah. I'm trying to make sure I'm understanding this before I say it out loud, but at least for, as of January, February, March, April, May, June, the end of June, there were 1,000 properties that are being currently monitored through the nuisance abatement program. A lot of these get reconveyed. I don't want to say some numbers here and get it wrong, but I don't know. That gives you a sense. At least right now, there's like 1,000 properties across the city that they're monitoring through this nuisance abatement program. I'm not sure if that means that they've already been sued and they're in the process of like trying to get compliance. But 1,000 is a small number compared to the total number of properties that the land bank deals with. But that's potentially 1,000 households that could lose their house. So
yeah, from the conversations that I've had with the land bank, you talked about like the 1,000 houses, and have they already been taken, or are they still kind of trying to be in compliance? From the conversations I've had with the land bank, compliance is really the goal, right? They want you to comply. They want to abate the nuisance. They don't want the property falling into disrepair. Like they have a vested interest in the person who owns the home being the one to build up the home, because if not, then the land bank is going to take it and it's going to be on their rolls, and then they're going to be responsible for it. So there's probably a lot of properties on that list that are still trying to come into compliance because the land bank wants you to come into compliance. So they'll give you time to come into compliance. And so from what I've been told, they're not just straight out trying to take your house as the first step. they're not trying to take you to court as the first step. They do want you to come into compliance because the goal of the nuisance abatement program is to abate the nuisance. And so I'm pretty sure that some of those houses probably are still in that compliance pipeline, because that's kind of a little bit of what their goal is most of the time.
It looks like there have been 702 homes that have achieved compliance through the nuisance abatement program over the life of the program, which looks like it really started in 2021. So there's 211 that have achieved compliance in 2025. There were 315 last year. So depending on how they determine, what counts for what year, there could be more houses that achieve compliance this year, which would be good news. The number that they have for reconveyance, which basically means LMA taking property, contains a couple of different programs. So I can't say that number encapsulates. So I don't have a good way to say this is how many homes have been taken through that. But I've heard similar that the goal. I mean, they try to do their best to make sure reconveyance doesn't happen, because then you're just putting a property back into the pipeline, and the whole goal of the land bank is to get these properties out of their inventory, and they've been working to get that down over the years.
Mm-hmm. Yes, most definitely. The land bank is going to be a discussion, especially like when we look back at a couple years. I had a recent interview. I was talking about some of those early years in the land bank when it was definitely, Lord knows, all types of development across the nation and world buying some Detroit properties. But with that is this episode of Public Comment. We'll be coming back for more, and I'm sure that this land bank discussion ain't going nowhere. It's definitely going to be raised, and talking about money and purse strings, that's all city council. So we're going to do that. Khary Frazier here with Detroit is Different. Malachi, talk to the people.
BridgeDetroit.com is where all of our reporting is at. The conversation we have is partially based on reporting in my Wednesday morning newsletter, which you can sign up for free on BridgeDetroit.com. We have no paywalls on our site. We are in our fall fundraiser right now, so would really appreciate if anybody could throw us a couple of bucks. We are supported by foundations. We also rely on support from people like you, and honestly, it means more when I see somebody chip in like $1 or $2. It means like we're actually having an impact for people, and they see the value in what we're doing. So help us keep this free and help me continue to do this. But yeah, all of our stuff is on BridgeDetroit.com. You can check out our YouTube channel as well for interviews on the 2025 elections. We had a really good episode, I think, last week about co-governance and what the candidates could be saying about immigration enforcement. So lots of good stuff coming down the pipeline for that.
Yes, definitely. And Thomaesa Bailey, we own everything. Let the people know what's happening with policy in that.
Absolutely. We own everything, bringing politics to the people and the people to politics. I'm getting ready to be really busy. The Congressional Black Caucus Annual Legislative Conference is next week. So We Own Everything will be there, giving you an inside scoop on what the conference is like, what I'm doing. You'll get to see all of the panels and the parties and everything that's happening with CBC as a really important conference where Black leaders in Washington, D.C. and all around the state come together. So that'll be fun. Right after that, I'm doing a house party with Donovan McKinney, who's running for Congress. He's going to be coming down to Linwood, to the Moondog Cafe to talk about his platform. As you guys know, he's running for Congress in the 13th Congressional District, which includes where we are right now at Detroit is Different in my neighborhood, the 12th Dexter Linwood area. And then right after that, I'm going to be doing not one, but 2 political education workshops talking about, does my vote really matter? As we come up on the 2025 mayoral election in the city of Detroit, we need to understand what's at stake. We need to understand who we're voting for in terms of like mayor and council, what those positions do, and why it's important that we're voting and making our voice heard in those situations, because we do know that voting shapes our lives in a lot of different ways, and we need to understand why consistent political engagement is really important. So I'll be doing those at the Live 6 home base on October 7th and October 9th. So if you can't come to the first one, come to the second one. Can't come to the second one, come to the first one. Just want to make sure that our electorate is prepared to cast our ballots next month. In November.
Definitely. With that being said, peace. You're watching Public Comment every Thursdays at 8 a.m. the live stream. Detroit is Different in Bridge Detroit. Local politics of Detroit.